Okay, so watch my head so I don't get plowed. I guess I'm pretty lucky this hood doesn't have one of those pins like some of the older cars did, because that would have probably killed me. Have that pin go through the back of my skull. Alright, so I got the belt on correctly now. I do notice that I'm going to have to move that clamp into a different position. That's why I haven't put any coolant in the radiator, was to make sure everything lined up. So I do have to move that clamp. I will probably flip it around and face it down on the back side, but that's just loosening it up and putting it there. But everything else is good, so I didn't need to get a new belt. Everything, it's not adjusted yet, it's still pretty loose. But we wanted to make sure that we had everything right, and after I looked it up online, I figured out I was an idiot and had put it in the wrong position. But yeah, because the YJ, is there even a sticker on here for the YJ? Yeah, I don't even see a sticker for the YJ routing, so I'm not sure how that worked. But yeah, so that is what it looks like. Should I put together a parts list if you want to do the conversion? I could put a quick video with just pictures of what you need and where I bought it. Maybe I'll do that in case people have questions. Like I said, the nice thing about this is now my adjuster is here instead of all that hinky shit that the YJ came with and a lot of the Cherokees, where you had like 3 bolts you had to loosen up and then it was at a weird angle. Now I can fish a extension down to this bolt and do my adjustments there. So today we are going to, I don't know if I'll do that clamp right away, but I will do it shortly. Today we are going to put the drive shaft in, because like I think I said, I don't remember, yesterday was kind of a blur after I got bumped. They said that these should be pre-lubed at this end, and I just have to lube this end. So I'm going to go ahead and hopefully install this drive shaft today. I got some hardware that came with it, so we will get the correct tools and we will slide up underneath here and see about getting that installed. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is remove the straps and the bolts from the axle, because that's where I put them so I wouldn't lose them. And then that's our new slip yoke eliminator kit and everything. So we're going to get that, and I do believe the bolts fish in from this side and then they just thread into the CV unit. So let's get it up there and see how this all goes. Alright, so I got the CV part in. Sorry for the zoom. And I was concerned that I wasn't going to have enough, because it was just short of sitting down in the cradle. But what it is there's a little bit of thread sticking out. You have to kind of bang it a little to get it to extend fully. So I'm going to go ahead and get this end tightened up so that I can spin it, and then when I put this end in, I'll be able to do all the bolts without having to move the Jeep. So these happen to be 13, and it looks like I need to get a 1/4-inch drive socket, because the ratchet I used on those will not fit in this cup. So I'm gonna go get a 1/4-inch 13 and see how that goes. Alright, so what I used was a 1/4-inch 13 that fits just perfectly and gives you plenty of room to work. Like I said, the transfer case and everything's in neutral, so I just spun it and then I just put a pry bar in the knuckle to snug those down as tight as I could. I'll come back later and torque those down when I can find my inch-pound torque wrench. it'll be a lot easier. Now we're going to go ahead and put those in, and we'll take this tape off. It's hard to see. There you go. So now we're going to do this. Now I am not replacing my straps, even though it says in the instructions you should. I don't know why they just don't send you some. I mean, was it like an extra buck for $300 drive shaft? They can't afford to throw some straps in. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get those in, and then we will move on to the next, which will be tightening down all of the drain plugs so I can put fluid in. And just a quick side note, take your wire brush and clean the seats up. I had a lot of dirt packed in there from the previous owner, so we're going to clean that up real good so that the bearing caps sit nice and tight, and when the dirt works its way loose later on, the caps won't come out and you won't lose your drive shaft. Okay, so what I did was I got the one cap to sort of sit in there, and I held it in with my hand, my good hand, and then I used a little pry bar on this side to seat the other one, and you can see that the little bit of the bigger threads are sticking up there. So now that is completely seated in there. So now I can put the caps on without it falling on my head, because that's all I need is something else to hit me. So I got both caps on and started, and we're using a 5/16 ratchety because that seems to work on there pretty good, or a 5/16 socket should work in there, whatever you have. Alright, so they're good and snug. I will have to come back in with a 5/16 socket and the torque wrench to torque those things down, because you definitely don't want them coming out. And if you try to tighten them down with a wrench, you will most likely strip them. So just snug them down until you can tighten them down with a socket good and tight. And so we'll torque those. I think there were torque specs in the book. If not, I'll go by the bolt size. So that's that. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and tighten up all of our drain plugs, oil pan, transmission, transfer case, and this adapter one. And if you can see, it's still pretty loose. So we'll get that done, and then we can add fluid at some point. All right, let's get onto that. Hopefully I have all the right size tools down here. If not, I'll be hunting. Okay, so my replacement oil pan bolt ended up being a 16. I don't know what size the transmission and transfer case plug is. That ended up being an 18. So now I just need to figure out what these last two are, and we'll get those tightened up and cleaned up as well. Like I said, I'm gonna come back in here with the brush and the blower and get all this loose dirt and crap off of the transmission anyway. So yeah, let me figure out what size those are. I can't remember. I'm sure I've got a wrench laying here that was for, and I'm gonna, this stupid torque bolt is just dumb. What I'm going to do, I've got this old shock bushing that I took off the old shock. I'm going to put that up in here just to keep that from rattling, and it'll give a little bit more cushion. It's got some on the top. I don't know if I'm missing the one from the bottom. It didn't show any for the kit, so I'm just going to use this, and that will prevent that thing from rattling. All right, so I put that bushing in there and just tightened it down until it started to squash it, and now it don't rattle no more, and it still has enough flex because the bushing will allow it to move around a little bit without, I guess, tearing up your plate. I doubt. I mean, that bracket is bolted straight to the bottom of the transmission, so okay. So I know this is bigger than 7/8 because that's what I have here, or 3/4. How much bigger? About 1/4 inch. So, all right, let me go grab a tool for that, and I need to grab a tool for this one, and then all the drain plugs will be tightened. Okay, so the transmission one ended up being a 15/16, and I believe the other one's a 7/8 because those are the two that were upside down in my box. So we're going to see if this fits on there and then tighten the other one down. So I ended up using my long 7/8. I came in from the front side and was able to do it. There's not enough room between the nut or the bolt and the skid plate when it's in place without the extensions, because I took it apart when it had the skid plate off. So if you have the transfer case drop, then you should have enough room. I just didn't have enough room to get my socket in there. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to hit the transmission with some engine cleaner, and we're going to scrub it down with the little brush and knock some of that crud off. All right, I hit it with that degreaser, a little wire brush. It looks a lot better. I did just dry it down with a rag here, nothing fancy. I am still missing a couple of bolts. I'm going to have to still get to the hardware store. So I won't be able to start this thing until I do that. I really don't want to put my current exhaust system because it is all butchered up. I would like to get a nice clean one. So I still am debating whether I'm going to buy the Crown one and then just have it modified with the correct catalytic converter, or they have an eBay one that's supposedly all American made, but they say theirs doesn't come with a California cat, just a 50 or federal one. So who knows, but I need to crawl to the other side of the Jeep and get the other side of the transmission because I did not want to crawl through the grease that was dripping out of the transmission there before I tighten that. So I did put the new crush washer in here. The other one has an O-ring on it, so you just have to snug that down. I tightened this down pretty tight. I don't know if there was a torque spec, I didn't look it up, but enough where I felt like the water washer crushed. So slide on to the other side and I'll get the rest of that cleaned up, and then I'm going to take a short break, and then I will get set up to put fluids in the oil pan, or the engine, the transmission, and the transfer case. I'm waiting for a needle adapter for my grease gun to come in so I can grease the U-joint, and I'll grease the slip at the same time. So making progress. I can't put coolant in the engine yet until I fix that clamp, so that will be something I need to do as well. Yeah, this side's pretty dirty too, so we'll get this side cleaned up a little bit and then we'll call it good. Alright, I think it looks a little better, and I'm glad that I was cleaning it because there was a lot of oil here. I thought maybe it was this drain plug that was leaking, but there was oil all down here where this metal, it's weird, there's a metal adapter between there, but I thought that's where it was leaking because you can see this has been apart. There's silicone here, there's silicone there. I hit this with the brush, so I'm going to say that's a little loose. So I am Not sure why it's loose. I thought the fill plug was on the other side. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's the fill plug and they just didn't tighten it down. But I believe it looks to be about the same size as the drain, which means there should be a crush washer, which I'll replace that when I fill it. But I'll double check to see which side is the fill. I'm not sure. I thought it was on the other side. But I'm going to clean this little bit of dirt right there. It's hard to get to at this angle. Skid plate's in the way, so it prevents me from coming in from the other angle. But yeah, I hit that with the brush and it turned, and I was like, oh, so another leak. Yeah, see, that's silicone. At least the wire brush knocks it right off, so it looks a little better. So yeah, hopefully this transmission's in decent shape. I'm kind of concerned. I mean, the fluid that came out of it was kind of a greenish tint, so could have been fresh gear oil. Maybe they kept having a leak. Not sure. I also still need to put fluid in the clutch, but that will be something I do once I get the motor started again, I guess. Or I'll do it whenever. Right now there's no seats in it, so it's not like it's easy to do. Okay, well, cleaned up pretty good. Got that one a little better. It's a lot better than it was. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up this spot of grease so I don't lay in it anymore. I'm gonna use the same degreaser. And then we can start filling everything. At least now we kind of think we know where that leak was. All right. I'll be back in a little bit. All right, so it's time to put some oil in it. I have some good old-fashioned 1030 O'Reilly's store brand 5 quarts. I'm only going to put a little bit in this way to make sure that that oil plug is nice and tight and not going to leak, and if it does, then I can not have it leaking all over the place. So got myself a little filter. We're going to knock this out. So we're going to put probably, I don't know, not much, probably, well, enough to fill up the funnel, and we'll let that set for a few minutes until it gets down to the bottom, and then we'll check it for leaks, and then if no leaks, then we'll go ahead and top it off. All right, well, I poured it in and it immediately ran through the funnel. Like I said, I put just enough to fill the funnel completely up, and now I'm just looking here, waiting to make sure we don't have any drips. We shouldn't. I snugged that down pretty good. It does come with a O-ring style, or kind of like an O-ring gasket that goes around the nut part of the bolt. So hopefully that should be good. The original one was all marred up, so figured I'd throw a new one in. I think it was like $5 or something. So it doesn't register on the dipstick yet, so that means it's really low. And as far as the transmission goes, one website said it was the passenger side, the other side it was the driver's side. The photo, it's a schematic photo, shows it on the passenger side. Now this is an AX15. I figure they did it on the passenger side. It's already loose, so I'm gonna go ahead and use that. And I'll show you what I'm gonna do on that. All right, so I don't see any leaks. I'm gonna add a little bit more oil and wait a few minutes to make sure. All right, I put quite a bit in now, and I've been checking it with the dipstick, and we're still not showing. Now I did just hear Sounded like water running, but I know it was the oil. So apparently the oil has gotten to the point now where it has drained down a bit into the motor. I could hear it running through there. When I do start this motor, because it hasn't been started and the oil's been out of it for a while, I am going to unplug the coil. That way I can crank it a bit and get some oil pressure and oil lubing up, because it does have a brand new oil pump, so I don't want to start it dry. So we'll just crank it a bit once we get to that point, but yeah, it's still days away. All right, so oil is in. It is so clean, it is really hard to see on the dipstick. I actually had to run my hand down until I could see where the oil was building up on my finger, because it was clear on the dipstick. So all right, and we got no leaks, so that is part 1 done. So we got that. Now for doing the fluid in the transmission and the transfer case, I have one of these lids that came off of like a gear oil bottle. I think this was a royal purple one, and I've got a section of rubber hosing. I left my cover off. What I'm going to do is hang my bottle up here. The transmission takes about 3.7 quarts, it says. I'm going to plug the other end into the transmission, and I'll feed it in a little bit at a time until it starts to weep out, and then we'll call that good. And then I will get myself I have plenty of this hose, so I'm going to swap hoses, use this end because I can clean the end up real easy, and then we'll do the same thing with the transfer case. So just like with that plug, the drain plug, there's a crush washer on this side port, and I'm trying to figure out whatever the hose is. It's over here somewhere. I can't get it to it. Okay, I have to reach up there and get it, and then I'm going to plug it in the hole. So this tubing is off of one of my wife's medical bag things, and what I did was I slipped a small piece of rubber hosing over it, so when I put it into the transmission, it doesn't fall out. It's just like that. All right, so now I can go up on top and start feeding the transmission fluid in, and we'll get that going. All right, so there's the hose coming up from the transmission. I've got one of these royal purple bottles, screwed the lid on, got myself bungee corded around the steering column and the dash here to hold it. This is 1 quart, this bottle. So if I fill this up 3 times and let it completely drain until it's out of the tube, that should be 3 quarts. I can check down there at the bottom, and then like I said, it's 3.7 quarts. So I figure 3 will get us close, and then we'll just figure out if I can stick my finger or something inside there and touch the fluid. If we can, we're good, and then we can add a little bit more. But that's it. It's going to hold up pretty nice. It's not going to go anywhere. I could take another bungee cord and wrap around the top just to make it more stable, but let me go get the fluid, and then we can get started. All right, so I got it in. It's flowing. I'm gonna go down and double check and make sure I'm not spilling it on the ground. All right, and you can see little air bubbles moving, so that's good. And it doesn't look like we have any drips going, so that's a plus. We'll just let that run for a while until that jar is completely empty, and then we'll do it 2 more times. All right, the first bottle's just about done. No leaks as of yet, which is a good thing. No leaking out of my little seal. So far so good. And it just dawned on me, I have another cap, so there's no reason for me to wait for this cap to be freed up to do the transfer case. So I'm gonna go hunt down the cap and another piece of hosing, and we'll start the transfer case. I think this one, I have enough room to cut a shorter piece of tubing and just do it from right here instead of running it all the way to the top. So I'm going to undo that top, the fill plug there, and we'll get started. And again, because half of it's metric and half of it's standard, this is a 30 mil for me. So, all right, and the fluid I'm using is ATF plus 4 Mopar. It's what everybody said to use. I got a yellow cap this time and probably about less than a foot of hose. And what I'm going to do is feed the hose into the hole and then get the bottle up here somewhere and let it drain out. It's ATF fluid, so it should go pretty fast. All right, so that's back together. Actually, this made a bigger mess than anything else. I had the hose too long, and trying to tip the bottle upside down was a waste of time. Really what I needed was a hose about 3 inches long, so I could just fit the hose in, turn the bottle on its side, and squeeze it. It was a lot easier that way. The first time, it just kind of leaked around the seal and came out and got on the ground here. So, but it is full. It was seeping out, so wiped everything down, put the plugged back in. So the only thing I got left now is to grab some washers from that bag that's right there, go over to the passenger side and see where we're at with the last bottle of trans fluid, and we should be good. No leaks. That's the old leak from before. No leaks on the transmission or on the motor. So we have fluid in everything. All right. The only thing we don't have is coolant, but I still got to change that hose. So let me go the other side and we can be done for the day. Okay, well, 3 quarts was just a little bit too much, so we're going to let that drip down for a little bit and then we're good. I'm going to say it's almost done. I have a new crush washer on the plug, and once that kind of starts to trickle, we'll go ahead and put the plug in and call it a day. So plug's back in. I cleaned all the leak off. I'm gonna let this tube just hang here and drip overnight. That way all the oil will be out of it come morning. It's just going into the catch can here, and so that's it. All right, well, thanks for watching. Have a good day.